Good day everyone, my name is Patricia S. Barami and today I will discuss our last topic, which is the lesson 22 entitled Women's Issues in Development. So today we will explore women's issues in development through three key frameworks: the Women in Development, Women and Development, and Gender and Development. Later on, we'll discuss their unique perspectives on how development impacts women and the strategies they propose to enhance women's role in the society. So, to start our discussion, let me present to you the lesson objectives. So, in this lesson, we will understand the principles, models, and concepts of women in development, women and development, and gender and development. We will also distinguish with, what, and God, and highlight their key differences and unique perspectives. And lastly, we will analyze the importance of each principle to national development and their implications for policy and practice. So by the end of this discussion, you should be able to articulate the principles between the three frameworks, which is with, what, and God. We will also discuss how these models differ from one another and their implication for national development. So this understanding is very crucial as we address the dynamics of gender and development discussions. So now, before we take a closer look to those terms, let me first unlock these important terms which we might encounter throughout this lesson. So first we have the development. So development is the process in which someone or something grows or changes and becomes more advanced. Next is we have the Women in Development, or the WID. It is an approach of development projects that emerged in the 1960s, calling for treatment of women's issues in development. Next is the Women and Development, or the WAD. An approach comes from the perspective that change in terms of providing women access to the productive sector. And lastly, we have the Gender and Development. So this was developed in the 1980s, stepped away from both WID and WAD, and was founded in socialist feminist ideology. So the God approach holds that the oppression of women stems largely from a neoliberal focus on improving women's reproductive and productive capabilities. So yes, to ground our discussion, we really need to clarify what we mean by development and the frameworks we will use. So development, as I mentioned earlier, refers to the growth and advancement of society, and WID, WAD, and God provide different lenses through which to view women's roles in this process. So now let's take a closer look at each of these terms. Introduction: Women in Development. So Women in Development approach this issue the exclusion of women from development program and approaches. Women in Development saw women as a group that lacks opportunity to participate in development. So the main task was to improve women's access to resources and their participation in development. The WID approach emphasized the importance of integration of women into development programs and planning. Accordingly, this was the best way to improve women's position in the society. So this framework emerged in the 1960s. So as it became clear that women's contributions and needs were often overlooked in development initiatives, WID argued that integrating women into development programs was essential for fostering progress. It played a pivotal role in advocating for women's issues, culminating in notable recognition at international platforms like the United Nations. So the main focus, or the keyword for women in development, is that its main focus is to integrate women into the development programs. So next, let us take a closer look to the next framework or next approach. So we have the women and development. So adopting the Marxist approach, the main argument of WAD was women had always been part of development process. WAD asserts that women have always been important economic actors, and the main focus of WAD is on the interaction between women and development processes rather than purely on strategies to integrate women into development. WAD saw both women and men as not benefiting from the global economic structures because of disadvantages due to class and the way wealth was distributed. So women development, it was critics. It critics women in development by recognizing women's existing roles in development. It also underlines global inequalities and asserts integration that integration can disadvantage women. So this approach arose as a critic of women in development. It emphasizes that women have historically been integral to development processes, yet have faced systematic inequalities. It critiques the idea of simply integrating women into existing frameworks, arguing that this often reinforces global inequalities rather than addressing them directly. So now let us proceed to the next approach, which is the gender and development. So gender and development looks at the impact of development in both women and men. It seeks to ensure that both women and men participate in and benefit equally from development, and so emphasizes equality of benefit and control. It recognizes that women may be involved in development but not necessarily benefit from it. God is not concerned with women exclusively, but with the way in which gender relations allot specific roles, responsibilities, and expectation between men and women, often to the detriment of women. So for the women development, it was in the 1990s. It was this approach emerged, and the women and development shifts our focus from women alone to understanding gender relations as a whole. It recognizes that both women and men should have roles to play in development, and it also emphasized the need for equality and participation and benefits. God also tackles deeper issues such as the oppression of women faced in both public and private spheres, broadening the scope of development initiatives. So, since we already tackle all the approaches, now let's point out some of their similarities and their differences. So before we proceed to the next slide, let us first compare the similarities and differences of these three frameworks. So first, let's talk about the similarities of these three frameworks. So all of these frameworks aim to improve women's status and recognize the need for inclusion and development. So WAD and God, their main target or focus is to recognize the inclusion of women in development. And for their differences, the WID focus on integration, while the Women and Development critiques class inequalities, and Gender and Development analyzes broader gender dynamics. So it's really important to compare these three approaches. While they share a common goal of improving women's status, they still differ in their methods and focal points. So, for instance, Women in Development emphasizes integration into development, while Women and Development critiques systematic inequalities, and Gender and Development provides a comprehensive analysis of gender relations. So, how do you think these distinctions affect the effectiveness of each model in practice? So, for us to answer that question, let us proceed to the practical approaches to women's development. So let me just next slide. So we have here five practical approach to the development of women. First, we have the welfare approach. So until the early 1990s, development programs addressed the needs of women almost entirely within the context of reproductive roles. So that's the welfare approach. Next is we have the equity approach. The equity approach, in contrast to the welfare approach, saw women as active participants, organizing to bring about necessary changes. And next is the anti-poverty approach. So this approach focuses on both the productive and unproductive of women, with an emphasis on satisfaction of basic needs. And next we have the efficiency approach. It aims to have increased production and economic growth, with an emphasis on full use of human resources. And lastly is we have the empowerment approach. So the empowerment approach, the aim of empowerment approach is to increase the self-reliance of women and to influence change at the policy, legislative, societal, economic, and other levels to their advantage. Its main strategy is awareness raising and situates women firmly as active participants in ensuring change takes place. So these several practical approaches have been used to promote women's development. So for example, the welfare approach typically addressed women in terms of motherhood and child health. But as many criticized this limited view, new approaches like the equity and empowerment models emerge. So these advocate for a broader recognition of women as active economic and social participants. So for the summary, Weed, Wad, and God evolved towards achieving women empowerment since the 19th century and up to present. Aside from that, several practical approaches have been utilized to underscore the role of women in nation building and vice versa. The evolution of these theories approaches only state that the women empowerment is a developing principle alongside development of the country. So in summary, as we've explored Weed, Wad, and God, we see an evolution in thought regarding women's empowerment and their role in national development. So practical approaches also underscore the need to actively engage communities in these efforts. So what are your reflections on how these models have changed our understanding of women's issues in development? Alright, so yes, as we wrap up, think about how you can apply what you've learned today in your own communities. What actions can you take to address the issues surrounding women and development? Alright, so finally, I'd like to open the floor for any questions and thoughts. How can we collectively address the challenges facing women in development? So your insights and experiences are valuable, and as we seek solutions together. All right, so that would be all for my topic. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day ahead.